Good evening, everyone. It's been a while, but I am back with another review. Sorry it's been so long, but I was really busy and helping my boyfriend with all his YouTube videos as well. You should check him out. It's Wolf Brothers Speeches, and he has another playlist called Crazy Fun Vids. So, it's been a while, but here it is, The Exorcist. The scariest movie of all time. That is according to the critics. And this is the special edition. It's state-of-the-art digital transfer, and it has some added scenes, director's commentary, and all that. And it stars... Let me just turn this around. Jason Miller, Ellen Bernstein, Max von Sydow, and Linda Blair as Reagan. So, The Exorcist. I'm just looking at my notes here. I was told by one of my YouTube subscribers that I should make notes next time, just to make it go a little more smoothly, so I'm taking his advice. The film is very grounded, realistic, and atmospheric, and I think more than anything that's what adds to the scare value of it. It doesn't feel corny or cheesy like some horror films where you don't really care about the characters very much. What makes it unique is the amount of emotional investment that's put into these characters are all very well developed. They're characters that you care very much about. In fact, the only bad character in this story, of course, is the demon Pazuzu, who takes over the little girl Reagan in this movie. So, this deals with the essence of evil in a very profound way. The cast is stellar with great performances all around. Jason Miller, playing Father Karras in this, a priest, was a highlight for me. He's a very sad character who sees nothing but pain and suffering in the world around him. He drinks and smokes. He's very human, you know. There's nothing about him that elevates him above anyone else. He's very fragile. He even looks fragile. Like, his cheeks are very sunken in. He has very dark, kind of striking, emotional eyes. And, you know, he's very kind of hunched and a smaller guy, you know. So he's very vulnerable, and he's a man who's struggling with his faith, not sure whether he believes in God anymore. I love the bond that's established between him and his estranged mother. Well, he doesn't get to see his mother very much in the movie, and she kind of lives by herself, listening to the radio. She's very lonely. You know, not many people come to visit her. So, in fact, one of my favorite scenes is a scene where Karras comes to visit his mother, and it's a very touching moment. And when she's so happy to see him, and he tries to be a good son to her, you know, wrapping her leg that's been injured, and it's just a wonderful scene. And it really establishes the bond between him and her. Later on, when he tragically loses her, he's made to feel horribly guilty about it, and that takes away his faith even more. In spite of this, he is a very good man. Who is ultimately prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice in spite of his own very quiet and controlled suffering. The little girl, played by Linda Blair, gives an extraordinary performance in this. She goes from a sweet and innocent little girl with a very close bond with her mother at the beginning, and by the end transforms into a disgusting and perverted demon. Ellen Bernstein plays the girl's mother, and her performance can only be described as harrowing. I mean, she goes through every range of emotion, frustration, anger, horror, and sorrow, as she watches her little girl descending into the pit of madness. And anyone with children watching this would probably be very disturbed by it, because it's pretty much the worst experience any parent could possibly go through. I mean, it's one thing to lose a child, but it's another thing to watch your child be totally taken over by evil. So, Max von Sydow plays the Exorcist here, and he's only in the film briefly at the beginning, during this scene where he's at a dig in Nineveh, I believe, and he's digging up artifacts. So you're introduced to him in the beginning, And then you see him again at the very end for the last 20 minutes or so of the film. He works alongside with Father Karras to exorcise this demon out of Regan. So he's unforgettable in the film, though, even though he only has a couple of scenes in it. From the moment he appears, he radiates kindness and love. He's like a rock of faith in this. And really unafraid to stand up to evil. He's very strong and brave and very grounded in his faith. Pretty much the opposite of Karras, who is questioning his own faith. So it's a very interesting dynamic between the two of them. All the supporting cast were great as well. The detective investigating the events, who's named Kinderman in the movie, and the man who plays him is an award-winning actor. Which I believe it's Lee J. Cobb in it. Or it's Jack McGrowan, I'm sorry. Jack McGrowan plays the detective in it, and he's wonderful. And what makes him cool in the movie is that he's not really on one side or the other. He's just not sure what's going on with this girl. You know, he's a man who just radiates kindness and trust as he talks to Regan's mother and kind of, in a way, tries to gain her trust so that she'll open up more to him. But you see that Kinderman is troubled in the movie. There are scenes that show him kind of pulled to the side, out of the way, where no one can see him from the house, and looking very troubled as he looks up at the house that Regan is in. And you can see that he's very conflicted, you know, as a detective, not sure what the reality of the situation is, just trying to uncover the truth. So he gave a really interesting performance in it. It is harrowing to watch as Regan is subjected to the equivalent of medical torture in this, as an army of doctors try in vain to figure out what is wrong with her. Many people say that the spinal tap scenes are the most disturbing part of the film, and I totally agree, where the doctors, as she becomes more and more under the control of the demon, the doctors are trying to find out. They think it's a mental illness or some kind of lesion in her brain at first. So they decide to do this brain scan that involves injecting a dye up through the artery in the neck, which goes through all the arteries in the brain, and then they use this X-ray device to scan her brain and create images of her brain, and all the arteries show up because of this dye that the light kind of bounces off of, this infrared light or whatever. So it's a very invasive surgery, like kind of procedure, and these days, of course, they would do it with a CAT scan, you know, which is not invasive at all, really. But they had to like insert a needle right into her neck, and it's the equipment, like the machinery they use, is extremely loud and clanking, and it's basically like watching her go through torture, watching that scene. And many people were more disturbed by that just because of what this little girl has to go through, you know. The film is stunning in its cinematography and the shooting of the scenes. What I love about it is how there is an intense moment of grueling terror, which is followed abruptly by a moment of complete silence. This makes it more intense in a way because you're left some room to chew on it for a while, you know, rather than being bombarded constantly with all these kind of images of violence and sexual degradation and all this and that, right? So it's not continuous. Like, it doesn't, like some horror movies that are really over the top gore, this movie is not like that. There are some moments that are gory, but they're done very quickly and have a profound impact. So rather than being continuously bombarded by brutal imagery, which I think takes away the shock value by desensitizing the viewer. So the effects in the film are simple but very effective at bringing the supernatural elements of the demon to life. Who can ever forget the famous head-spinning scene, or the part where Regan's body lifts off the bed and hovers as the house is shaking with supernatural power, and the priests are chanting "The power of Christ compels you," which is my favorite scene. Ultimately, it takes a man of faith, and a man who is questioning his faith, to drive out this evil force. And I think what's cool about it too is it ultimately leaves you to make up your own mind about what it all means. I think it's a cinematic masterpiece. It's not a film that everyone will enjoy. Some people might be offended by it or think it's too obscene. There are moments that are really gross when the demon is vomiting up this like green bile, and one scene in particular, which spoiler alert, but I'm sure a lot of you have seen this film by now, where she is forced to violate herself with a crucifix. Which the first time I saw that scene, I wasn't offended by it, but it was pretty much the most shocking thing I've ever seen in my life. So, yeah, I mean, viewers that are sensitive, you gotta know what you're going into when you see this movie. I mean, the movie is fantastic. It's a total cinematic masterpiece, in my opinion. It's got great performances. It's just a really good, solid film. It's got a wonderful musical score, too, which is, during the scary moments, it's like a really high-pitched violin, kind of, making these really, like, almost like fingernails being scratched along a chalkboard. It's very nerve-wracking. That's the way to put it. And the score in the beginning is more piano-driven, I would say. So it's kind of tinkly and very pretty in a way. And the movie really is very subtle in the way it keeps building. It's not until more than halfway into the movie that the horror really starts to intensify. So it gives you a really good lead up to it, where you get to know all the characters really well first. So, which ultimately, again, makes it even more horrifying because you're so connected with the characters and you feel everything they're going through as you're watching it. The film just seems to leap right off the screen at you. It's such a powerful film. It's one of those films that almost transcends, it just creates this belief that anything is possible. I mean, that there are all kinds of forces out there that we don't understand. So, whether or not there's demons, I'll be honest and say I don't know. I think it's possible that, maybe it was a split personality. And in many cases, I think a lot of it is psychological as well in the person's mind. I do believe our minds are very powerful and extend well beyond our bodies, and that the mind is capable of bending reality in some form or another. So I'm not sure if demons are actually real or not, or if they're manifestations of the ego in society. I don't know the answer to that question. So ultimately the movie leaves me feeling a little disturbed and moved. And it's just this whole journey that you go on of body and soul, and it's just a powerful piece of filmmaking. It is a very sad and horrifying film, and there's not much joy in it. There's a little bit of joy, a little bit of humor in it, but it ultimately is a very sad story because you're watching all these human beings go through this experience with this beautiful, innocent girl being possessed by a demon. So it is a horror movie. It doesn't try to be anything less than that. But it's a very dramatic horror movie and a very, very good horror movie. So, and in my opinion, the most realistic representation of evil that I've ever seen. I don't really believe in evil in the sense that it's this black substance or that it's supernatural. I think most evil comes from the ego, which disconnects us from existence and tries to make us despair, which is exactly what this demon tries to do. And also this demon tries to take everything that's normally beautiful and turns it into something horrible, including sexuality, all that stuff. And it also feeds on your memories, your worst memories. And in the case of Father Karras, it feeds on his feelings of guilt over his mother, that he wasn't able to take care of her the way he should have, and also his lack of faith. The demon needles him about that. And it just finds, basically the demon feeds on the fear and pain of others. And it finds a lot of food in Karras to feed on because he's a man who's in a lot of pain. So, so yeah, ultimately, this is an amazing film that I would give a perfect score. I cannot think of a single flaw in this. I think it's just a perfect movie in every way. And it's not my favorite horror film, The Evil Dead is, but if I had to say what I think the best horror film is ever made, I would have to say The Exorcist. Just all around, it's just fantastic. So that's my review on The Exorcist. Sorry it's been a while, but I'm back now. I hope to have another review coming for you in another week or so. Alright, good night everybody. Bye-bye.